Project Management, Chapter 4. So in Chapter 4, we talk about scheduling projects. And there are steps in scheduling the projects are one, defining the project scope. Scope is what does the project entail? What is the hoped for ending product? What things does the customer want when they're looking at the project? From there, then we can establish the project priorities. What things are more important than others? So if we would get under a time constraint, is there something we're willing to concede? Then we create the work breakdown structure, or the WBS. So this is a schedule of how we're going to complete the project in time. We integrate the WBS into the organization, and then we code the WBS so that we can understand all of the information in it. This is especially important for very large products that would have a lot of information and a lot of documentation that needs to be stored and easily findable. When we're talking about defining the project scope, this is just a very clearly defined list of what the end user is looking for. This helps us focus the project and create a timeline for the project. Another reason to define the scope that's very important is because scope creep, or when we add things on after a project has already started, is one of the biggest causes for projects going over their deadlines and their cost amount. So scope creep happens after you've met with a customer, you've clearly defined the project, they've agreed to the project, and you're started on it, and then they call you and say, oh, could I add just one more thing? Or, oh, is this possibly a potential thing? And the problem with scope creep is once you agree to something, it's easier for that customer to keep asking you for more. And at some point, there comes a point where the extra things that the customer is asking for should have actually been an additional project, especially if you've agreed on a price and you can't go over that price. So, for example, in many road construction projects, when you're working with the government, you bid the project to be done at a very specific price. And regardless of whether or not you are able to work in the price, that is the amount of money you're getting for the project. So you need to be very clear in what that project entails, because if you go over budget, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get paid by the customer for going over budget. When we're making the project scope, we're going to list a variety of things in there. So we have our project objectives, deliverables, milestones, technical requirements, our limits and exclusions, and then we review this with the customer. So again, our project objective is just what do they hope to have? The milestones would be what are their date requirements? When do they want to have something? Do they just want a finished product by a specific date? Do they have different steps where they want to see progress and they want you to do progress reports? What are the technical requirements that you need to complete this? And are you even capable of providing the technical requirements? Because if you don't have the team on staff to meet the technical requirements for a specific project, then you will have to go out and hire someone who does have those technical requirements, and that can add time, complexity, and cost to any project. Then what are the limits and exclusions? What are those things that you just cannot deliver? So you want to say, we can do A, B, and C, but not D, especially if you have a customer that has come to you with a very specific budget and set of things. There are limits to what you can do inside of a specific budget. and you need to be clear with the customer that anything beyond what your original scope or plan was is going to be limited by their budget. You're going to have to go over. So within the project scope, we have statements of work. So these are, of course, called, we love abbreviations in the business world, SOW. And then a project charter, which is a document authorizing the project manager to initiate and lead the project. It contains an expanded version of our scope statement. This is an agreement between us and the customer to move forward with this project and start it. And I've already talked a little bit about project creep. So this is the tendency for our project scope to expand over time due to various things. This also, when I showed that video in the first week about bike shedding, so bike shedding can also lead to scope creep. Well, what if we added this little thing that creates some value for the project? What if we did this? And then all of a sudden we're adding so much to this project that we've either very much gone over the cost, are no longer able to meet the deadline, or it's gotten to the point that it should have been a new project. Next, we're going to establish our project priorities. Within any project, we have constraints. We have a budget constraint. We want to keep within a certain type of cost. We have time constraints. And then we have the performance of our employees, the performance parameters. And so we want to look at what are those different trade-offs. If we are running short on time, would our management rather us go over time or over cost? Are they willing for us to bump the cost up a little bit in order to meet the deadline? Or is the cost more important than meeting the deadline? So we need to understand within the organization what those different parameters are. So we have to do these trade-offs of optimizing one thing over another. So when we look at scope, cost, and time, we can also have quality trade-offs. Rushed projects or projects where we're trying to reduce cost to the point that we're buying lower quality materials or we're allowing lower quality work in order to reduce the amount of cost. So we sometimes have to take one or the other. Either I can increase my scope or have a specific scope. We can't promise our customers the world unless we're prepared to deliver the world and capable of delivering the world. We have a limited amount of time. Our customers not just going to wait forever for this project to be completed. There are specific timelines in which we have to do it. We have to meet our budgets. And then we're going to want to have a certain amount of quality. One of the reasons that we want quality is that we want to be proud of our work and deliver quality projects and quality things. Another thing is that if we're not delivering quality, it's going to be less likely that people are going to come to us in the future to ask us to do another project. This is a project priority matrix where we look at those different parameters that we have. So time, performance, and cost that are those constraints that we have to work into. And then we have to decide which things can we push. So for example, in this priority matrix, we see that we can push the time over performance or cost constraints. So we're allowed to go over deadline to a certain extent, that's the one thing, but we have to fall within our cost and performance constraints.